For part C, we're interested in checking whether certain strings match against a pattern. So we have three sets of these tests. The first one is going to use a pattern dot, so period plus NE. Remember that plus is referring to one or more occurrences. So if you look back at the cheat sheet, plus is one or more times, okay? So that means that we can have one or more, some kind of a character, some kind of single characters in front of any. And so P1.matcher of Christine is going to be true. Or sorry, M1.matches is going to be true. Okay, because in this case, Christine is going to have C through I match the dot plus, and then any is going to come after that. And what is M1 dot group of 0? So when you do group of 0, that's referring to the entire string. Okay, so M1 dot group of 0 is just going to be the entire string Christine. And M1 dot group of 1 is going to specifically refer to the subsequence of the string that matches to the first set of parentheses, the first group in your pattern. And in this case, it happens to be the entire string again. All right, now for the find test. So what does find do? Find is right here. It's with matcher. So it's going to attempt to find the next subsequence of the input sequence that matches the pattern. So what happens here is that it's going to actually look at the longest subsequence. And in this case, it's going to be from C all the way to any here, right? So it's really the entire string. And so it's only going to increment counter 1 twice. It's only going to find one subsequence. So this is 1. And now the second set, the second part, is going to be with this pattern. Okay, we have another group inside of which we basically have similar format as before, except now we're using a question mark instead of a plus sign. And remember that question mark is either 0 or 1s, right? So 0 times, none at all, or exactly 1 time. Okay, so does this match this pattern? The answer is no, because you have to have ATT. You don't have to have the additional character before ATT, but you have to have ATT. It can't be an empty string. Okay, so this is going to be false. If you do have ATT, well, that's going to be okay because you can either have or not have anything before the ATT, so that's true. What about at mat? This is going to be false because, in fact, whether you look at this first mat or the second set of at, let's say we're looking at the first set, right? Then we have some characters that come afterwards. Well, we're not accounting for any of that in our pattern, right? In our pattern, we end with ATT. Okay, so let's look at the second occurrence. Well, we have more than one characters before this ATT, whereas here we have either 0 or 1 occurrence, right? So that's still not going to match. That's going to be false. Okay, so again, same thing with before, find. So if we pass in this string, how many times is it going to find subsequences that match this pattern? The answer here is 2, and the reason for that is because it's going to look at this one, okay? It fits it because we have ATT at the end and we have exactly one, some kind of a character, single character before, which is M in this case. And similarly here, right? Our dot is going to match with S and then we have ATT. This is going to be 2. But your question might be, well, similarly for the first part with Christine's, find Brian and Brian mine, why was it not more than 1? And the reason for that is because the plus is going to try to find the largest subsequence. And so actually, if we try to make this plus, right, and this works in this case just because we happen to have subsequences that start with exactly one letter, right? So if I run this and let me comment out everything else. This is just an exact copy of the code in the question, except that I put it inside an actual class and imported these stuff, okay? Okay, so if I run this and not run anything else, okay, so the start is going to be the start index at which the subsequence is found, and then the end is going to be the end index of that subsequence exclusive. Okay, so we're starting from 0 and we're ending at 8, which is basically the last letter, or 7, the last letter of the string that we pass in, which means this gives us the exact same result as we got for this string, right? Here, we got 1. We got only one subsequence. And if we use plus, we also get 1. Whereas if we use, let's say, star, right? Okay, star is basically similar to plus. Okay, so let's say that we go back to question mark. Then it's going to give us 2. Okay, so star and question mark seem to be giving the longest subsequence, whereas a question mark is going to be looking at smaller subsequences. Okay, and that's precisely because this is exactly 1 or 0, right? So it's a very limited range. All right, and then the last part is looking at this. These are going to mark boundaries. So if you look here, these are boundary matches. So the caret sign is noting the beginning of a line and the dollar sign is the end of a line. You might be wondering, well, we saw this caret mark before when we were looking at character classes, right? And you'll be right. But here it has a different role. In fact, it's just negating everything that's inside the character class, whereas here, used outside of brackets, it's noting a boundary match. Okay, so with that in mind, this basically means that your entire line consists of onJack, and onJack only. You can't have anything before or after, because this specifies entirely the entire line. Okay, so if you have something like this, where you have a caret symbol and a dollar symbol after onJack, well, that's not going to match a line with just onJack, literally, right? So that's going to be false. Here it's going to be true because this is what we want. And here, when we pass in this, for the same reason as this became false, this is not going to find any subsequent. It's not going to match, and so this is going to stay as 0. And to see in more detail why that is, you can actually try running some tests here. So yeah, I basically copied this, and then here are some that you can run, right? So is this going to match? I just have onJack, but I have it twice. No. Okay, what about if I have a space afterwards? So I'm basically looking at the last output. No, right? What if I have an extra C? Is that going to work? No. Okay, so what if I go back to this onJack? That's going to be true. All right, so the only thing that will match against this is literally just the word onJack.